The high number of registration for today's webinar is a testament to the value of the content that we're going to share and to the timelessness of the topic and to the quality of our presenters, who I will introduce in just a moment. But first, a bit on today's topic: innovation tools for educating and upskilling supply chain automation technicians. Now, Allegheny takes seriously our commitment to closely track industry trends and to share our findings and conclusion with you, our customers, and our partners as they plan for the future of their training programs. And of all the trends we've seen and had our eyes on, supply chain automation is at the top, very top of the list. Before the COVID crisis began, the research firm eMarketer predicted that the global e-commerce market would reach $5 trillion by 2021, and that's next year. This will represent a 40% annual growth rate over 2 years, and that was before COVID-19, a crisis that has only accelerated the rate of growth. In our territories, Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey, this rapid growth has put significant stress on the entire e-commerce supply chain, including distribution and warehousing. And as these operations seek to alleviate constraints in their operations, they're looking more and more towards automation as a solution. This is happening even as many of our industrial sectors are already suffering from a shortage of technical talent, possessing the skills and knowledge necessary to service and troubleshoot the automated processes and equipment. With the growth in automation throughout the supply chain, this problem will only become more acute. That's why today's topic on innovative tools for educating and upskilling supply chain automation technicians is so timely and important. And I'm sure as you're eager as I am to get started. Joining us today are three of the country's most sought after and respected authorities on supply chain automation, who will share with us the challenges and opportunities in the supply chain automation market and the best practices in upskilling and certifying supply chain automation workforce. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Steve Harrington. Steve Harrington is the industry liaison for the National Center for Supply Chain Automation. In this role, he is responsible for the development and oversight of a national industry leadership team consisting of supply chain executives and logistics industry stakeholders. Steve has 28 years of experience in supply chain operations. Steve, thanks for joining us today and welcome to the webinar.
John, thanks so much for the kind introduction. It's great to be here. In 2011, two academics were seeking National Science Foundation funding for a growing occupation that was emerging in the modern 21st century warehouse they called the supply chain technician. The use of automated material handling equipment and systems required to more efficiently meet customer demands was growing. Automated systems typically found in manufacturing operations and the technologies behind them had become more affordable and reliable. This emerging technician occupation with a distinct career pathway was occurring at the intersection of traditional industrial mechanics with motor controls and information technology. The demand for these well-paid technicians, multi-skilled technicians as we call them, was growing exponentially and no one outside the industry knew it. Hands-on educational training programs contextualized to meet this growing demand were non-existent. Related industry-validated occupational certifications were nowhere to be found. The two academics I referenced earlier convinced an NSF program officer to come to California to see some of these automated facilities in operation with the goal of providing hands-on background to their funding request. The NSF program officer agreed to make the trip and was taken on a tour of a 1.4 million square foot fully automated Skechers building that included robotic systems and a highly automated Cardinal healthcare operation. Like most people, the NSF program officer had no idea automated systems like these were in use today in today's technically advanced logistics environment. He was extremely amazed and surprised. He could see why these highly automated systems required skilled technicians to keep them operational. The National Center's funding request was approved. This slide illustrates examples of the automated systems that exist in today's modern warehouse. It should help provide some context for today's webinar. Many of you drive down the road and see large white buildings on the side of the road, and you have no idea what's inside of them. They just look like big warehouse buildings. Well, this gives you examples of some of the technologies that are in play today. Inside those buildings can be investments anywhere from $1 to $5 million up to a fully automated robotic facility with a $200 million investment. Quite surprising. So I mentioned the National Center was funded by NSF, by the National Science Foundation, under the ATE program, Advanced Technological Education Program. And the focus of our work is on technician education in today's automated logistics environment. The purpose or the focus of the center is on resource development. We develop resources based on industry input and provide those at no cost to academics and industry contacts who might have an interest in using them for their education or for their workforce upskilling. We have a large and robust industry leadership team, and industry has guided and driven everything that we've done to date. There's no user cost for any of our grant-funded resources, and we're not involved in student education. At the core mission of the center is to increase the supply of highly qualified supply chain automation technicians. And if you look at objective 4 on the right-hand side, which is the context behind the National Center's involvement in today's webinar, we're focused on it. One of our objectives is focused on establishing and promoting stackable national industry certifications in supply chain automation. So we have an array of community colleges involved in our program who provide the academics that help with the research guided by industry. This is a list of some of those schools. In addition to that, we have somebody involved from Central Piedmont Community College in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we have a number of other educational collaborators in numerous states throughout the country. This slide illustrates the number and the size and the scope of firms that were involved in the center's formation and to help us chart the course for the center's direction. We currently have 41 industry advisory team members from 29 companies. One of the things industry did at the front end was help define the occupation itself. And it is at the core of everything we do. We look to that definition to help steer us along. And Neil will touch upon this as well, but it's a person who installs, maintains, supports, or operates or upgrades the automated material handling equipment and systems which support the supply chain. The most important thing is outlined below that occupational definition, which shows all of the variety of skills that are needed. And I mentioned earlier, the title of multi-craft technician is one particular large employer uses. Others use Tech 1, 2, and 3, and there's a variety of ways that this occupation is classified in today's, by industry today. NSF funds tech work in new and emerging technician occupations that are tied to technology, that have career pathways, that provide living wages from the start and have a career ladder to grow upon. This slide illustrates that career pathway itself from one of our industry leadership partners. Starts at the bottom end with literally a Tech 1 or a tech trainee, learning the skills, coming aboard, maybe earning a certification, and then becoming more seasoned as their education increases and improves. And they're also earning some on-the-job training, and moves through the career pathway up the ladder. And the starting wages for a technician are in the $18 to $20 an hour range, and typically around $40,000 an hour. And the mid-band of these positions pay between $75,000 to $100,000 a year. And at the upper end of that, they're well in excess of $100,000 a year. I mentioned that the National Center creates resources. One of the main resources that we've created is the Introduction to Automated Warehousing e-textbook. 6 of our industry leadership team members were involved in the project to create this ebook, which is fully downloadable at no cost to academics and industry representatives. It's designed as a survey course for high schools and community colleges to bring awareness to the industry itself. People have to actually be aware of the supply chain before they can actually seek career pathways in the supply chain. It has interactive widgets. There's an instructor manual behind it. There's a link on this page which can take you direct to more information about the e-textbook. And you will be receiving a link to download the e-textbook at the conclusion of the webinar. So in terms of what is occurring across the globe today, as it relates to e-commerce growth and the growth in the use of automation in today's 21st century automated warehouse, this particular slide provides a little bit of context from a global perspective. In 2019, 103 billion packages were handled globally, that were shipped globally, basically 3,250 packages per second, and that number is forecast to double by 2026. Now, the key point behind this particular slide, as it relates to industry, is that those packages used to ship one carton at a time, a case at a time, a pallet at a time, and now they're being shipped in each at a time, which adds an amazing layer of complexity to industry today. And in order to meet customer demands, to have that shipment in 2 days or 1 day or even 2 hours, there's some advanced technologies and automated systems on the background. This trend is driving the demand and the need for those. As it illustrates at the bottom, 103 billion more package handling opportunities in the next 5 years to come. So what does that mean domestically? So this chart illustrates the growth in e-commerce across the US over a 10-year time span. And there was a forecast during 2020 for it to grow about an additional 2% or $85 billion a year in additional e-commerce activity in the US. Again, a great challenge for the industry. The reality is what actually happened. And this is illustrated in this slide, which is the most current slide, most current piece of information I've found available today. And it shows, if you look at the far right-hand bar here, that the growth was expected to be about 13% of total US retail sales. Well, it's now at over 16. And that is quite a large tsunami. It's quite an epic shift or a tectonic shift. And industry has to respond to that and has to meet that demand in an effective and efficient manner, which is quite challenging. Here are a couple of anecdotal points I picked up along the way from the Wall Street Journal. UBS, an international finance company, is projecting that 25% of all US retail sales spending will be online by 2025. And that trend will close about 100,000 physical stores. That's quite a seismic shift in bricks and mortar in today's 21st century automated warehouse. The reality is this trend is driving jobs that were traditionally in bricks and mortar retail into logistics. And it means a lot. It means a lot going forward. Shopify, think of Shopify as a third-party platform similar to what Amazon has. COVID-19 has pushed e-commerce growth forward by 10 years, was a quote from them. Their business has grown 96% in the second quarter of this year. And the International Council of Shopping Centers, a very reputable source of data, estimates that e-commerce holiday sales will jump 25% this year. So again, all of that trend information is pointing toward a growth in demand and a need for automated technicians in today's modern warehouse. This is just a little anecdotal piece of information I picked up very recently that's from about 2 weeks ago, in which Amazon's year-over-year growth for the Prime Day sales increased 36%. And in general, the Prime Day sales from 4 years ago, 2016 at $1 billion to something that's happening quickly at a $6 billion mark now is quite interesting. And what it's doing to today's shipping industry. So think of the package handling companies, think of UPS, think of FedEx Ground, think of Amazon, who's handling now more than 50% of their own package demand. And of course, the Postal Service and lots of other folks. The daily demand for package shipping right now is at 86 million packages heading into the holiday season. The total US capacity is only 79 million. And so what can companies do? They can add shifts, they can hire people, they can add facilities, but this sort of stuff does not happen overnight. And this chart itself shows you the year-over-year change from one year to the next, meaning that this is the capacity that's already being added with the lighter colored bar on the left-hand side. So that's how it translates into the package industry. There's which is highly automated. How else are they going to get packages to us in the quick amount of time that we get them now? And will drive additional job growth and will drive more warehouse automation adoption. But how does this translate in today's modern logistics warehouse? So what happened was a metric CB Richard Ellis came up with about 4 years ago, saying for every $1 billion in e-commerce sales, there's about an additional need for 1.25 million square feet of distribution space. Recognize that this is, again, a transference of space from bricks and mortar retail into the logistics environment. And basically, there's a need for around 175 million square feet of additional distribution space nationally, again, driving that trend. Some of this space will come from closed bricks and mortar stores, and the growth will continue closer to population centers because of the demand to need to get to customers quicker. So what was the National Center's role in the development of the certification? Early on in our research, we identified a gap as part of the role. NSF does not want to do or redo anything that's already been done or is already out there. And based on that gap, we identified that there were no industry-validated certifications in support of the occupation. With that said, there was an agreement that was entered into between MSSC on the call today and a leading industry association, MHI. The National Center's role was to do the research behind that. We convened industry focus groups, which consisted of major retailers, large package shipping companies, and automated equipment and system suppliers. Then we took that research, turned it into a report, and sent that over to MSSC for MSSC to go through its process of certification development. Along the path, industry leadership team members from the center have been involved in validating the outcomes and the assessments from MSSC's work, have been involved in working with Amatrol in terms of the design of what you'll learn about later today, which is the SkillBoss Logistics device, and validating the e-learning and making sure it's mapped over to all of the research and to what's been done with regard to the creation of certification. Going forward, our role is to raise awareness about this particular program as an honest broker. So where are we headed next? There are a number of schools that are involved with the National Center who have received funding from NSF and from other sources to run pilot programs involving the certification and the SkillBoss Logistics device you'll learn about today. So that is underway in multiple states across the country. In addition, the Target Corporation is running 4 different pilot programs in 4 different states, including one in California, centered around an apprenticeship program in a pilot format. It's very exciting stuff, and there's a lot more schools that are in the pipeline in terms of getting involved in this particular program. With that said, the National Center has industry data that you may find useful in a grant application submission that can help you in securing funding for equipment and the SkillBoss Logistics equipment in the certification system. This is my contact information. So with that said, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Neil Young. Neil, if you could share your screen.
Thank you so much, Steve. Let me just get in here to my presentation. Yeah, thanks again. I'd like to also thank you, Steve, and also your National Center for Supply Chain Automation. When we developed our 3 certifications actually for automation technicians, called the Certified Technician Supply Chain Automation Certification and Training Program, we were able to tap into so many of the resources that the National Center provided, as well as critical subject matter experts to help us with our founding standards that we use we use our standards as the foundation for everything else that we have. So our e-learning, the SkillBoss Logistics device, our assessments, our credentials, and so forth. So, but just a few points on MSSC and who we are. The Manufacturing Skills Standards Council is an industry-led nonprofit national certifying body preparing frontline technicians in advanced manufacturing and supply chain logistics. At this point, we're pretty well institutionalized around the country. So we have over 1,760 authorized assessment centers and a network of over 2,700 MSSC authorized and trained instructors that deliver our courseware. We have accredited assessment centers that have to follow very secure measures for assessment delivery. And we probably have anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 certificates per month going through our programs around the country. So we're also endorsed by the National Association of Manufacturers for both manufacturing and logistics. We're also third-party accredited under the highest international standard for certifying personnel companies, which is ISO standard 17024 for both manufacturing and logistics. And we have a total of 7 certifications, 2 for production technicians, 1 for a logistics technician, the material handling workers, or certified logistics technician, and certified forklift technician. Those we've had in some place for some time now. But just a little bit more background on our SCA program. I'd also like to thank MHI, as Steve mentioned, material handling industry. They did help us with the subject matter experts and so forth. Material Handling Equipment Distributors Association also has been very helpful with providing us with subject matter experts and just increasing our recognition and visibility of the SCA certification program. As Steve mentioned, this is a person who installs, operates, supports, upgrades, or maintains the automated material handling equipment and systems that support the supply chain. We do have a complete, full, shovel-ready certification system here, again, with our industry-validated standards, assessments, courseware, instructor training, credentials, and registry. Just so you know, Amatrol will also be offering the authorized instructor training for the SCA program. Paul Perkins will be talking about that a little bit later on in his presentation. But just to go in a little bit more detail about the 3 certifications. The first is equipment maintenance. Now, this credential is well aligned with the skills most supply chain employers require for entry-level maintenance technicians. The bullet list you see here under the title gives examples of key activities or skills for which individuals are assessed for the certification and documented. So this includes skills such as system operation, safety, preventative maintenance, lubrication, and various types of machine adjustments. Now, once they can get through equipment maintenance, they can move on to equipment repair. Now, there's no strict order here or requirement for this order, but our technician level 2, a little higher level, is equipment repair. So similar to the EM credential, the ER credential is aligned with the skills required for the next level technician, Tech 2, which is to troubleshoot, install, and modify the electromechanical equipment. Now that includes working with systems such as hydraulics, pneumatics, AC and DC electric motors, and mechanical power transmission. Finally, the 3rd certification is network repair, or CT-SCA NR. This credential is really the capstone where certificates demonstrate competency of the entire automation system, adding, of course, controllers and networks. Like the other 2 credentials, the NR is aligned with industry requirements for the Tech 3 occupation. And in this credential, individuals must demonstrate their ability to install, configure, program, modify and troubleshoot programmable logic controllers, variable frequency drives, Ethernet networks, barcode scanners, and the entire system. So I just want to mention that each of these 3 pays quite well in their own right, and even the entry-level equipment maintenance can start at $18 to $22 an hour. So, you know, as you're working with your workforce investment boards and you're looking at funding, grant funding, you're very realistically looking at placing our certificates or people in grant opportunities or students into well-paying jobs with just one of these, let alone all 3. And Steve went into quite a bit of detail in terms of the income levels. Again, each one of these certifications, now each one really combines the best project-based learning. So it's a combination of e-learning and then hands-on. So whether it's EM or equipment repair, network repair. Each involves 150 to 200 hours of training time. They're going through e-learning, and as they're going through the e-learning, they can take breaks and then go on to the SkillBoss Logistics machine, this device, to get the hands-on. So it's the best of both worlds. Now, with this, we have two assessments. So we have a multiple choice for the e-learning and a hands-on performance-based assessment for the performance-based assessment that is done by typically an instructor or human examiner. Now, one advantage to these SkillBoss devices, and a lot of our customers, technical colleges, community colleges, they spend a lot of money on trainers and hard trainers. But the reality is that if you look at all the skills that we needed to condense and put into one device, and then if you look at 1,760 assessment centers, if you're looking at trying to develop a training as well as an assessment device, we just cannot replace a SkillBoss Logistics or SkillBoss Production. Today, of course, we're talking about SkillBoss Logistics, and Amatrol has just done an ingenious job of combining all these hands-on skills, over 100 skills, into this one device, which means that we can replicate a very consistent and fair training and assessment offering in any of our locations around the country. So, and that's, of course, we're offering a national certification, industry endorsed and supported. That alone attracts a lot more interest among students that might be interested in manufacturing and logistics careers. And again, it also makes this this training and along these career paths and this certification along these career paths available to rural and urban areas that might not otherwise have been able to afford a program like this, and also to employers and a much larger number of schools. So with that said, I'm going to turn my presentation over to Paul Perkins, who can provide you with more detail on the SkillBoss Logistics device. And let me, of course, thank Amatrol, who's been a critical partner in the development over these several years now. So thank you, Paul.
Well, thank you, Neil. And as Neil mentioned, SkillBoss Logistics is the device for assessing the hands-on skills in the CT-SCA certification. So everyone who gets certified must test out on this device to assure the assessment is consistent. And SkillBoss also has a second purpose, which is to serve as a training device to prepare individuals for the assessment. The development of SkillBoss has been an extensive process. It's spanned about 2 years, and I can truly say it's been a team effort. The leadership has come from 5 key organizations: the National Center in California, MSSC in Virginia, MHEDA in Illinois, MHI in North Carolina, and Amatrol in Indiana. And this group not only created the vision for the device, but they also played a key role engaging industry experts in the development. And we ultimately assembled a who's who of the supply chain industry with iconic names like some of those that you see here. These companies provided expert advisors to shape the design of SkillBoss, and they spent countless hours reviewing and testing the prototypes to validate the skills. And I can truly say it's been I think a very passionate work on the part of all the people who engaged in this process. And the device that resulted from this effort is the system that you see here in the lower left corner of the screen called SkillBoss, and it's a working tabletop size sortation system. And even though it's compact, SkillBoss uses the same technologies and techniques used in large scale sortation systems like the system you see on the right side of the slide. On SkillBoss, packages are inducted, scanned, routed to multiple conveyors, and then sorted into 3 destination chutes. Or if there's a bad scan, they're sent to a rework station. And the skills are not only applicable to sortation systems, we also made an extra effort to include a wide range of technologies so the skills learned and assessed apply to other types of supply chain automation. To learn the skills, we've developed 3 online courses, as Neil mentioned, which are aligned with the 3 certifications. And the courses not only prepare the individuals for the CT-SCA hands-on assessment, but they also prepare them for the online certification tests that MSSC provides. And as Neil mentioned, each course is roughly about 200 hours, which includes the time for both hands-on and the multimedia. And you can see from this slide, these are examples of some of the screens from the various course lessons, and you can see that they've got animations, 3D graphics, text. They're highly interactive, not just page turners. The courses have also been designed specifically to focus on the technology of supply chain automation, And what that means is students go through these courses faster than if they were taking traditional maintenance courses being taught in colleges now, which might have similar content, but cover more than what is needed in the supply chain industry. So this feature makes it I think these courses very ideal for workforce development and in-plant training, where the time to train needs to be as short as possible. These courses also feature simulators so students can practice their hands-on skills while they're online in addition to with SkillBoss. And this shows, the slide shows some examples of the simulators which cover fundamentals such as electricity, motor control, pneumatics, and PLCs. And we call these simulators virtual trainers because they allow the individuals to perform the same skills they would perform on actual industry quality training equipment. And what makes the software special is that it's recreated the same behaviors that they would see working on the real devices. Students can make mistakes and see real results. As Neil mentioned, there's 100 skills that can be assessed on SkillBoss, and so we also have to have materials to actually be able to teach 100 skills. And to perform those skills, the learners work with 3 major SkillBoss elements. In the lower left corner of the screen, you can see software screens. That's a human machine interface, or HMI, running warehouse control software. In the upper left corner, there's a control unit with a PLC, Ethernet network, and variable frequency drive, which is mounted to the workstation that you can see on the right side of the screen. And that has the conveyors, multiple types of conveyors, sensors, actuators, and a barcode scanner. So in addition to these elements that make the device operate, we actually have a component of SkillBoss that is designed to make the device not operate. And this is actually the most important feature of the system because it enables individuals to learn and assess their troubleshooting skills. And that's probably the most important thing that they learn to do with the CT-SCA certifications. And to accomplish this objective, we have incorporated a computerized fault insertion system called Fault Pro. And Fault Pro consists of an electronic circuit board and software that inserts faults into the system and tracks students' troubleshooting activity. We can insert over 50 real-world faults. You can see some examples on the left side of the screen. And using a computerized method to do this has a number of key benefits. One, it's safe. We've designed it so it doesn't hurt the student or the equipment. 2, it's automated. Students can actually learn troubleshooting on their own, so teachers don't have to babysit the students while they're learning or testing their troubleshooting skills. And lastly, it creates a data record, so students and teachers can use it to improve their skills by reviewing the results and measuring their improvement. So now that I've described the overall operation, let's watch a short video so you can see SkillBoss in action. The SkillBoss workstation is designed to be accessed from all 4 sides so multiple students can work on it at the same time. We've also designed it for safety with features like guards with safety switches placed over critical moving components. To start the process, the packages are placed on the induction roller conveyor. These packages are then fed with gap spacing to the induction belt conveyor to be scanned by a barcode reader. The first package receives a good scan, so the vertical sorter at the end remains horizontal and passes it to the distribution conveyor on the backside. This next package, though, got a bad scan, so the vertical sorter routes it to the recirculation conveyor on the top level. The package stops at a rework station where the person can fix the problem, which in this case is to flip over the package to show the barcode. It is then released to be scanned again. The final stage of the process is to sort the packages to their destinations, and this occurs on the distribution conveyor using 3 electropneumatic diverters, which sort the packages into 3 discharge chutes. Each diverter uses a different method common to sortation systems. To monitor and control the process, learners use a warehouse control software that runs on a touchscreen PC. The software features graphical screens to operate the system and has many other functions which are accessed from a main menu. Examples are system management, where the system is configured, and many order handling functions such as order picking, order tracking, order entry, and order analysis. And there's also alarm screens and even a 3D monitoring and operation screen. And finally, students learn troubleshooting using Amatrol's Fault Pro software, which runs on the same PC that runs the HMI software. In summary, SkillBoss has been carefully designed to provide a very realistic experience for learning a wide variety of skills in operation, maintenance, and troubleshooting of supply chain automation. As you might expect, instructors have much to learn to teach and certify individuals in the CT-SCA certifications and Skill Boss. And to make sure that that's a success, we've developed a master instructor training course. The first course is being held this fall at Amatrol, and then we'll have additional courses occurring throughout the year next year. And in the course, the instructors will learn how to implement the certification, use the online training courses, and become thoroughly familiar with the hands-on skills. So that's what I have to share about Skill Boss. If you have any questions about Skill Boss, the certification, or the National Center, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at these email addresses. And now I'd like to turn it back to Steve Harrington for summary remarks. Steve?
Awesome job there, Paul. Thanks so much. The National Center for Supply Chain Automation is very excited about how our research has evolved from just a visionary idea into a complete certification system with ISO accreditation, online preparation courses, and standardized hands-on assessments. It couldn't happen without the combined efforts of our industry and development partners. Our industry partners have told the National Center that the CT-SCA ISO accreditation and a standardized hands-on assessment, which in this case is Skill Boss, is a very attractive program to them because it removes the legal liability associated with self-testing and skill assessment bias. They're able to avoid lawsuits. Hands-on skills assessment has always been a challenge with any type of technician skills verification system. Amatrol was able to solve this challenge in spades, and SCA is thrilled with the outcome. At the core of our mission, NSF requires centers to seek industry input and develop resources to meet industry's workforce needs. This collaborative outcome is perfectly aligned with our mission. One noteworthy point: although CT-SCA was developed to certify technician skills in support of the logistics industry, from a foundational skills perspective, it addresses employer needs for entry-level techs in today's manufacturing operations. With this in mind, SCA is now a partner in an NSF grant application with an advanced manufacturing mega center that includes 5 additional academic institution partners. We're hoping that this center receives funding. At the conclusion of today's webinar, you will be receiving a follow-up email from the National Center. In fact, it should already be in your inbox, which contains a link to both the survey and the Introduction to Automated Warehousing e-textbook. NSF requires that we gather feedback from participants in our activities. This sort of feedback helps direct our future work and allows us to maintain our funding. If you have an interest in learning more about center resources, NSF funding opportunities, or the NSF Mentor Connect program, question 4 of the survey provides a field for you to enter your contact information for future center follow-up. For these reasons, I kindly ask you that you take 2 minutes to complete the survey. Thank you so much. With that said, I'd like to turn this over for the Q&A session. Ned?
Thank you, Steve. As you said, we're going to move to the questions and answers now. If you have questions, please use that Q&A button at the bottom of your little Zoom screen to submit them, and we're going to pose them to our panelists. I'm going to direct the first question to Neil Reddy. Is the training only available on location in Indiana? I guess we're talking about the instructor training, or is there an online version of the instructor training as well?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ned. As Paul mentioned, the instructor training will be done initially at Amatrol, and Amatrol will be putting out a schedule here for the master instructor trainings or the instructor trainings at that location, and that'll be a 5-day training. And we're starting our first one this within the next couple of weeks, actually. And then we may have, it's up to Amatrol's schedule, but I think we're looking really to start for all practical purposes in January. And Paul, you can chime in if you want. But it'll be 5 days, and it'll be done until we have a master training center regional approach and have that level of interest regionally. Right now, that we're planning the instructor training to be held at Amatrol outside of Louisville, Kentucky. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Neil. Here's another question. What's the typical way in which schools and industry can implement the certification program? Steve, why don't you take that? How do schools and industry work together to implement the program?
So it's kind of interesting question. Thank you so much, Ned, with kind of a broad range of options. Some schools are looking at integrating the program and its e-learning components into existing curriculum for AA degree programs in industrial technology or industrial automation, integrated systems, mechatronics, things of that nature, tweaking their curriculum a little bit to move this program forward. Others are creating direct certification training programs at their schools. And then there's the opportunity with regard to the contract training or the direct training with industry and the opportunities that that presents. There's discussions about dual enrollment and dual credit programs that are occurring in the context of high schools with regard to learning what is kind of the level 1 certification, the EM, which is contextualized and can meet the needs with juniors and seniors in today's high school. Upon completion of that certification, would enable those high school graduates to enter into good paying jobs in the $40,000 a year range, and then continue their education with their academic partner, working through level 2 and level 3, and their experience on the job to advance their careers. I had also touched upon earlier the Target project that's underway, the Target pilot program regarding apprenticeship and apprenticeship opportunities, and some schools are considering options like that. Recognize that this program is in a kind of an evolution and piloting phase. We'll have a lot more data and a lot more detailed answers as we move forward here in the next 6 to 9 months. Thank you. Great question, whoever submitted it.
Thank you, Steve. And we had another question. I think you answered it there. Is it appropriate for high schools as well as an AA program? So I think you answered that as well.
Absolutely. The opportunity is for those that have current kind of CTE industrial training lab programs, to look at that from again, from an EM perspective. And then the high schools that have dual enrollment or dual credit programs, arrangements with community colleges or technical schools, to be able to look at the opportunity that this particular certification and certification training program provides for them.
Thanks for that, Steve. I'm looking at our attendees. We have both educational partners. We also have commercial and industrial partners on the webinar today. And this one looks like it came from an industrial partner. Can a company provide the certification, or does it have to run through a school or a college? Neil, can you answer that?
Sure, Ned. Thanks so much. Absolutely. I think we mentioned that Target is actually doing a pilot right now. We've had other interest from other large employers that have a great deal of interest in offering this in-house. So there's no reason at all why an employer cannot be an assessment center as well as offering the training in-house. So they would, of course, need to purchase the learning materials and then have an instructor go through instructor training and go through the approval process of becoming an authorized assessment center. But absolutely, it could be very easily done in-house.
And to add on to that, with regard to any companies certifying employees themselves internally, you have to look at the size and the scope of the number of technicians that you employ at your own company. And something where you're just looking at a couple of people probably doesn't make sense. There's the ROI doesn't quite pencil out. If it's something larger in the 10, 15, 20 person range, that makes a lot of sense. You have to also understand the opportunity that this poses for industry from a existing workforce skills verification and skills assessment level. People who you may have at Tech 1, 2, or 3, or Mechanic 1, 2, or 3 level, so that sort of thing. You have the opportunity through a third-party validated system to assess their skills without any legal liability. And that is quite attractive, and it's why companies are looking at it. But realistically, you have to have a large enough a technician employment pool for it to make sense for you to invest it. So the trade-off is that you'd look for alternatively to work with your local community college or technical school partner to be able to make that sort of program work for your company.
We've got lots of good questions coming in. See if we can get one or two more in. Paul, I think these two are related, and you could answer them. One of them is, would the SkillBoss device be appropriate for an existing automation program or a mechatronics program, or is it really just for the certification program? And the second one is how many students can train on one skill boss at a time? And what's the typical max number that you would put in a class? So could you answer those about the skill boss device?
Absolutely, Ned, and those are two great questions. And first of all, the skill boss device is really a mechatronics system. So it's teaching, assessing hands-on skills that are really foundational to technician occupations in both manufacturing as well as logistics. So if you had no industry in the area in logistics, this device actually would be still be a fantastic fit for a mechatronics program that's preparing people for manufacturing. And so any school that's looking to use something like this to address the logistics industry should definitely be looking at how it could be used in the manufacturing program as well. It's got all kinds of sensors, and material handling, of course, is a key part of manufacturing as well as logistics, and it has controls and networking, and those are essentially the primary elements of a mechatronics system. And then as far as how it would be used in a classroom, I think at any one time, 2 or 3 people can work around skill boss and be doing different activities. And we've actually structured a whole variety of different skills, from working with troubleshooting and hand tools and adjustments. And because you can work on all 4 sides, and the system is about 8 feet long, it really does provide enough space to spread people out so that they can be doing different types of learning activities at the same time. But in addition to Skill Boss, the device itself, we also have an extensive amount of simulation software that would allow people to be doing other activities that are related to it, but just doing it at another computer in the classroom. And then also many of the skills that are being done on Skill Boss could be done in schools on a trainer, like a pneumatics trainer or a PLC trainer. So for schools that already have a lab where they have various types of training equipment there, Skill Boss would could be added easily as just an additional element into that lab, and be able to share activities across all those devices. And so depending on how you're using it in a class, I think a class of 12 or 16 students, certainly one device could suffice if by having these other trainers or using the simulation software. Probably 2 devices would be ideal, and so there's definitely some options that people can choose from. Thank you, Ned.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We've got time for just one more quick question. As I mentioned before, any questions that you asked, we will answer directly. So if you want to continue putting the questions in, we will reply back. So last quick question, and Steve, this is for you. Could you say again what the starting wage was for somebody who earns the first of the certifications?
So in the $18 to $22 an hour range, Neil touched upon that, and I touched upon it as well, around $40,000 a year. Of course, that is going to be based upon where you're at regionally in the US. Certain states pay a lot more. Other states may have a lower cost of living, and the wage levels there are a little bit lower. But that's a really good ballpark figure to quote and cite. And we've seen it repeatedly in all of our research.
Great, thanks, Steve. That's all the time we have for today. We want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I want to thank each of our presenters again for sharing their ideas: Steve Harrington, Neil Reddy, Paul Perkins, and of course my boss, John Walters. And I also want to thank all of you participants for attending the webinar today. As a reminder, we are recording the session, so everyone who registered is going to get a follow-up email with a link to that recording, and we certainly do encourage you to share it with others. So thank you all again. I appreciate you attending, and you all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.